In relation to demographics and crypto, I mean, I do think that demographics is kind of a core feature of crypto in the sense that like it's all young people who use it, you know. Now that's not to say that obviously some old heads and well, I'm not saying millennials, but like maybe boomers and stuff could potentially use it. You know, some of you like millennials might use it too, but no, but like I think so. I think in actuality, I it could be wrong in this, but I don't think that crypto is going to be widely adopted by current older generations, probably ever. I think that it's primarily a younger generation asset, and if older generations do adopt it, they'll adopt like the ETF. You know, like my dad is already talking about like a Bitcoin ETF and adding it to his like stock portfolio or something. So they'll adopt it as a aspect of institutions they already use. You know, they'll use a BlackRock ETF. They'll like, they'll use the stock market. Like we'll turn Bitcoin into something that is stock market applicable. And then boomers and, older generation people will use that. But I don't really see older generations using like a MetaMask or something by and large. There's margins. So everything exists within margins. There's no such thing as absolutes. So obviously you're gonna have margins of people who are like 65 and up who are gonna use, MetaMask and stuff. But I'd say by and large, we'll probably never see wide set, adoption among those demographics. Now, demographics though is about population characteristics as much as it is about population change, meaning that as younger generations who are native to a certain technological advancement grow older, they will basically this asset or this technology will become a more widely used product within the wider population. As the baby boomers die out, who never really fully adopted the technology, and the millennials become baby boomers in age, now you'll have all the younger generations who will, probably use this technology or some more advanced version of it to wider and wider degrees. And then you'll have the population go from today being what percent of the population uses crypto? Maybe like, and when I say use crypto, I mean like, I don't mean like, they've heard of it or something, or like they've maybe like tried it out or whatever.
Probably less than 5.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So you'll go from like probably like less than 5 to like half to then like 80%. Now, a big factor in that though is not demographics, but actually has to do with like policy and the effectiveness that governments are, like how effective governments are at co-opting the technology. I think it remains to be seen whether a lot of the, I guess, utility that comes from stable coins and all these other things won't be co-opted by USDC, and like a really effective rollout of some sort of like future USDC that is able to co-opt a lot of the current demand that people have for a digital dollar. If the government is effective at co-opting that demand, then maybe you won't see wide adoption of US dollar derivatives within crypto. If it's not effective, which I kind of lean towards that it's not going to be effective camp, then I think you could see wide adoption of crypto derivatives for dollars.
Yeah, no, that's actually, those are some interesting points you made. So the first thing I want to touch on is like older people never adopting crypto. I agree with you to a certain extent, and that extent is I feel like they're never going to consciously adopt it because they're comfortable doing things like how they're doing it. I feel like when they'll actually adopt it is when they're using it without knowing that they're using it.
I'd agree.
Like, yeah, like it's kind of working on the back end, because it's like, imagine like when the internet came to be before, Apple and Microsoft, you had to set up your own server, and then you had to get these firewalls, and you have to keep them cool, and you got to make sure your electricity is running right and all this stuff. But then, Apple, Microsoft, Google came along, Facebook with their large server farms. And now, like when you go on Wix or you go on or WordPress or one of these sites to set up a website, now you don't have to have the server in your house. If I had to set up a server, I don't know if I would ever have a website. I would probably learn, but 99% of people wouldn't. So it took those companies to be able to securely host servers so that people can build websites, use websites. It's called the client server model. And now people are using it without ever having to see, hear, smell, or take care of a server. How long that'll take in crypto, I'm not sure. One cool thing is that you do have a lot of VC capital being poured into the space, especially in infrastructure like wallets, exchanges, things like that. And then you also have a large amount of executives who are leaving Web 2 companies to be executives at Web 3 companies. So you have the talent leaving, you have the money pouring into the space, which is good. And then the other comment I wanted to make on what you said was, in terms of regulation, this is an interesting one because, like I said, this is a global asset. So you have to think about game theory. But this also goes deeper because it's just like a good book I've read is The Creature from Jekyll Island. And the people who are at the top, they look at being born somewhere not as like, oh, I'm loyal to my country, but I just happen to win the Ovarian lottery. They don't really care about the country they're from as much. So I've heard. So when I think about it from that lens, it's like, okay, there has to be someone who doesn't want the United States to fall behind, or someone being paid to purposely make it. I don't know what's happening for sure, but let's say everything is copacetic and the people at the top want the United States to be successful. Well, then game theory comes into play, because given that this is a global asset and no one wants to fall behind, all it takes is one country or continent to have the proper regulation. All the projects are going to go there, which is kind of happening already. Like, you have a lot of projects leaving the US because Gary Gensler is just like Gary Genslering. So if the United States doesn't want to fall behind, they're going to have proper regulation so that crypto companies are still building here so that we can still keep jobs here. So that's kind of my thoughts. What were you wanting?